morning, top of the day to you. Let me start by correcting one impression. President Bola Tinubu did not remove fuel subsidy. Fuel subsidy has been removed, from 31st of May, because the budget, the appropriation bill, was submitted to the House of Assembly December last year, and it has been approved ever since. It has become an instrument of appropriation. So any money spent outside that is extra budgetary. So there was no budget for subsidy from 1st of June. The budget included subsidy for January, February, March, April, and ended with May. So from 1st of June, there was no allocation for subsidy. So of course, what Tinubu did, was just to echo, the outgoing administration, they did it silently, without anybody knowing. But of course, he only echoed it out, and I think it's good he did, because ordinarily people will still be expecting that it is still business as usual. But the emphasis that the era of fuel subsidy is gone. Well, it's good for him, it's good for Nigeria, provided the money retrieved from fuel subsidy is channeled into appropriate areas, like he promised in this inaugural speech. It's going to divert it, it's going to provide to education, to power, to infrastructure, and whatever. Let him see that. We've had too much noise about this subsidy. I think for more than 20 years now. They remove subsidy today, tomorrow they remove subsidy, next tomorrow they remove subsidy.
So the cat with the 9 lives has now come to die eventually.
Let's see what happens. Because if you are not careful, the song will keep on repeating itself. Subsidy remover, subsidy remover, subsidy remover. Okay, the bottom line is this. About 10 billion naira, according to their report, is used to subsidize PMS on monthly basis. And there are so many people, so many of these contractors coming to take subsidy money. Some of them never imported a single liter of PMS into the country. And of course they will come with fabricated papers. In the course of the month, they have brought in 20 trillion liters, 30 trillion liters, and they begin to calculate the difference. So those categories of people are the one making us dry. And the president was quick to point to it that it was just a few people that are benefiting from this subsidy.
Could it be safe to say that the NNPC was also benefiting from that kind of a thing? Because you find Kerry coming out to now say that federal government is owing NNPCL to the tune of 2.8 trillion naira. This is something has never talked about all along, but immediately the pronouncement was made, like you said, acknowledging what's been done since last year December. He came up to say federal government is owing NNPCL to 2.8 trillion naira.
But there is no way, you see, we cannot place such allegation on an NPC. We are on air, and of course we don't have the facts and figures to say NNPC is doing this, NNPC is doing that.
Why is NNPC coming up with that?
The bottom line is that NNPC cannot be exonerated when it comes to issues relating to fuel, oil generally. There is no way NNPC can be exonerated because they are the major importer. Okay, they are the one who grant licenses to these importers, the consumers of these subsidy. And the statement of Kyari, just like many other statements attributed to him, it's not strange to me, because many of these politicians, they speak from both sides of their mouth. Take a look at it. the former emir of Kano, raised, he raised as the CPN governor. He raised an issue that NNPC did not remit as much as 20 billion naira. Then I think dollar was less than 500 naira. Then it became an issue, and instead of it to be investigated and found out what really happened, the next thing we heard was that he was removed from the office. Okay, peradventure, he became the emir of Kano, as fate will have it. Then again, he made some other statements regarding to this missing money, regarding to the way NNPC were meddling the national fund, whatever. That again led to his removal. So, if it is the NNPC now that is now being owed, this same NNPC that, okay, the whole world, Nigerians have been made to aware that they don't remit money accurately. They don't remit as at when due. They don't remit the due cost. It is now the country that is owing them. Let's wait and see. That is, events in the next few days will unfold.
Well, it could be conveniently said that the current administration is serious with the things on its desk, especially when you look at the way and manner government via NNPC was able to come up straight up with the price templates. Now, in certain places, for instance, Akure 500 naira per liter, in Lagos 488, in Abuja 537. So, is it a question of the fact that they were able to hit the nail on the head and say, look, we're going straight into this and there's no going back? What's the benefit of that for us?
Well, ordinarily, that is removing fuel subsidy to regulation. That is, but I think government should completely hand off. They should completely hand off and then provide an enabling environment as a regulator.
Okay.
Then NNPC will be part of the participant in that enabling environment. And let's see what happens. In the United States of America, where federalism is practiced in the real sense of it, between one state and the other, you have differences in prices of items due to tax structure. Okay, specifically between Illinois, that's Chicago, and Indiana, say a distance of the last town in Indiana to Chicago, about maybe 5 or 10 kilometers apart. Okay, and yet you buy PMS for maybe 4 or 5. I think $4 or $5 per gallon in Indiana, and you buy that same quantity about $9 in Illinois within a distance of, just because of that structure. So people will travel out of their state, go to other places when it is time for them to restock they go to other places, stock their store, and then come back. So that is true federalism. So we are not able to get the item at the same price uniformly all over the country. We are still going via unitary state. Okay, but for government now to come up with that template, it's still operating Nigeria as a unitary state. I think the price should be left to be determined by the market forces, the price mechanism of demand and supply. A point when it happened in the telecommunication industry, when you remember the old days of Nitel and then
telecommunication.
And of course, when the mobile line first came, it also had to get one. I remember
as much as 30,000 naira.
The SIM was bought for 25, 30. You remember those? But now, how will they buy a SIM now?
Almost free.
That was complete deregulation. So let the thing be completely deregulated. Everybody that had the capacity to bring in fuel, and then give them the licenses. Then they should just be monitoring. So if you bring your own and sell at 550 with your profit margin, and I get another source and I can sell at 400 or 300 and still make my profit, fine. So with time, we'll see the thing either coming up or going down. But that is if the enabling environment is provided, and that is if the cartel factor is removed from it.
Cartel factor?
Yes.
Maybe you elucidate.
Well, fine. There are fuel, or let me say oil and gas cartel that determines what happens in the market. By deliberately releasing the quantity that goes to the market so as to be able to checkmate the forces of demand and supply. We've seen it in the cement industry. And of course, if you look at this scenario now, it's coinciding with a point when one of them is coming up with a refinery.
So it's part of the cartel.
Well, I never said that, but of course.
But you said that one of them is coming up with a refinery.
Yeah. So it's coming up with a refinery, and of course there is an estimated price for what is coming out from him. And of course, if they want to sustain that organization, then the price must be at leverage with what is being brought from. But of course, with that, I salute his courage. Definitely, I salute his courage, because one of the responsibilities of government is also to make sure that industry don't die at infancy, and then of course, but there are other avenues through which it could be encouraged, like giving some tax holidays for sometimes, moratorium here and there, and then some other things. But of course, at the point where his fuel is, the coincidence, I'm not looking at the coincidence.
Okay.
I'm not saying he planned it with them. But of course, these individuals has been very powerful. When you talk about Nigerian economy, they could single-handedly determine the price of so many items. Is it cement? Is it flour? Is it rice? Is it sugar? Now we are talking about fuel again. That if an individual like that could come up with a refinery, between you and I and viewers at home, why is it not possible for a state like Ondo State to own a refinery? Why is it not possible, even the modular refinery? Why is it not possible for each of the state to own a refinery? And of course, we have people with oil wells, though it has been claimed, but of course we know it is. Especially most of these retired generals. What do you call them? So the timing, I'm just looking at the timing.
And the coincidences.
Well, if you say it's coincidence,
that's your word, the coincidence. Well, but then there's also this assertion by President Bola Tinubu that he's going to take tough decisions in the interest of the economy of the country. To very many minds, many Nigerians, the first subsidy removal is one of such, because he did not hide his feelings about it. Now, what other tough decisions do you think Nigerians should still expect? Maybe there's still certain things that will still happen.
Yeah, Bola Tinubu is not new to governance. We saw him in Lagos as a governor for 2 years, and then as a senator. One of the things, personally, which I know will come, is the review of the tax structure. Because that he has done, and he has done excellently well in Lagos. And of course, some of his duties that came to Oshun as governor has also replicated it. And then all the governors that have come after him in Lagos, have been doing the same, and they are harvesting. Well, it's not a bad idea, because a country like Britain, for instance, they don't have anything, don't have oil, but they make sure that the tax system is perfect. You can't evade the tax system. If you look at the scenario in this country, particularly Ondo State, what is the percentage of taxable adult that pay tax? So invariably, I'm expecting him to come up with a policy where at least more than 70% of taxable adults will be made to pay tax. That is one. Then again, God should give him the grace, because he meant well for the country. But before we can categorically confirm what is going to happen, I think the next few weeks or so will determine will the constitution of his cabinet. The kind of people he puts in his cabinet would let Nigeria know.
Of course, we are going to get to the convention of cabinet very soon. But you just talked about the issue of taxation, and I'm interested in that part. You mentioned Britain, and you've mentioned America today. You've mentioned some other places. Aren't you thinking that taxation is easier there because people get value for the money they pay in tax?
That is the point. That's the point. People pay tax in Lagos, without being forced, because they see what the money from it is being used for. If we are taxed and we see what we have value for our tax, nobody will complain. Nobody will complain. In London, you don't need a car, because the transportation system is efficient and it's running 24/7. Get to the rail station, get to the train station, get to the bus station. You find one. If you don't find one, you look at the board. You know how many minutes you take another one to get there. So you keep moving. You don't need a car. So for that reason, if you have a car, you are taxed heavily to buy it. You take it out, you park it. You are taxed for the parking space. You understand what I mean?
Very well.
So you take tax from your local county. Take tax. How they clean your environment. They maintain your lawn and all of that for you. So people see value for the taxes they are paying. But of course, they've been to all these places. That is one thing that bothers me. All our leaders have been to all these places. Then when they go, I don't know what they go there to do. Because I think when you get to an environment, you find something that is good. Bring the idea home. Bring the idea home. Tinubu has been in the oil sector, I think, for nearly 50 to 60% of his non-political working career. He was in ExxonMobil for a very long time, and then according to him, that was where he made his first millions. So I don't think anything should be hidden to him about everything that surrounds oil production and processing in Nigeria. So he should be at home with that. He shouldn't be somebody that will sit there and somebody who just conjure and then, you understand? He should be able, to read in between the lines in whatever submission is coming to his table, particularly. But one thing I will not subscribe to is for him again to appoint himself as Minister for Petroleum.
As it was in the last dispensation.
Even OBJ, and of course, I won't subscribe to that. But the bottom line is that
what difference will it make if he has a substantive Minister for Petroleum apart from himself?
Well, depending on the criteria on which is, you see, there are maybe 2 or 3 factors to be considered when appointing these cabinet members. One, which is key, is competence, ability to deliver. 2, political affiliation. At least people who gave him the ladder on which he leveraged to become the president. You want to, and then his personal acronyms. Those that were not even around during the election or whatever. But while looking at these 3, I would personally want him to look at the key sectors, the critical ministries. Appoint people to critical ministries based on efficiency, based on track records of achievement, based on antecedent. People who can deliver. Even among, if it has to be politically determined, fine. Even among the political parties, you find such. Not bringing a round peg into a square hole, just because he was a political ally. No. And then let those less sensitive. All the ministries are critical, but of course they are more critical than the other. Let all those ministries or persons that are less sensitive, then they can go for political patronage. Even within the political patronage, you still look for competency. Or if it is compulsory for you, okay, this guy has done so much during my eligibility period, he must be compensated. Fine. Bring him and tell him to give you a nominee who is competent. Of course, the expectations of Nigerians are high on him, and I'm sure he knows this. So there must be a radical departure from the way of doing things.
That's the same way expectations were high in 2015, and then people felt that it's going to be rosy, and then things will change.
Yes.
But it didn't turn out to be so.
It didn't turn. PNB meant well. PNB meant well, but by the time he considered his cabinet as at 2015, I knew he has taken the wrong direction. What was people like Audu Ogbe doing in his cabinet? People like Lai Mohammed. You see, if you look at that cabinet, about 80 or 70% of them were above 70 years. And these are people that have not done anything other than being in the corridors of power all their lives. In the second term, what is a lawyer doing at the Ministry of Works? All those past governors, who probably do not even score well in their states, dominated this cabinet. So what do you expect? So I didn't. Then again, the body language at the initial stage. If you look at the first 3 or 4 months or 6 months, everybody was very careful. Particularly his appointee, they were very careful, and then but when they discover there are some people around him who actually tied his hand, and of course he's succumbed, and then he played along. His wife came out severally to shout that her husband was not the one in covenant, and of course that is the truth, because nobody will know him better than his wife. So his wife said it at different places. He said, "But the government of Osrc has been hijacked."
Now you did talk about those past governors, and when you look at the Tinubu presidency, to some extent you should also expect something like that, because he himself is a former governor, he himself is a former senator. So is the cabinet not going to also be dominated by former this, former that, at the expense of competence?
It depends on the history he wants to leave behind for Nigerians. If it goes that way, fine. It's going to be recorded against him. If he decided to do it well, it's still going to be
how
recorded
well
against
then should he do it? What are you looking at? What are you expecting in terms of the cabinet formation?
In terms of cabinet, I've just told you my expectations now. Merits. In place of mediocrity or political patronage. Okay, if political patronage cannot be totally ruled out,
Very well.
then let them be. But there are some critical ministries that should not be toyed with, that should be given to people that can handle it. The economy. You knew you have come to me an economy in shambles. People or a team that can revive the economy as quickly as possible. Power is key. Education is key. And all those critical ministries should be given to technocrats, whether within or outside the party. He also said he's going to form a government of national unity. Fine, a good development. If it is from the other side that you can find people that will deliver, let him bring them on board. Then is the Ministry of Information. That one may not be, you understand what I'm saying?
I don't get you.
It may give that, I know you are not going to like what I'm going to say, but the bottom line is, that one is not as, I know they are the fourth rep of the government, but of course, it may give that out on patronage. I'm just using that as an example. There are some ministries.
Even at the expense of competence in information management?
No. That's why I say political patronage in quotes now.
Of course.
That even within his political parties, look for people that.
No, because you just said that Ministry of Information can be handled from the standpoint of political patronage, while health, education,
all those critical
they are critical.
Very, very.
Information is power, if you agree with me. So why should it just be at the expense of merit, but political patronage?
Not at the expense of merit. I never said it.
Okay then. It should also be based on merit.
On merit.
Okay.
But of course you can look within.
Oh, okay.
Because whoever is going to be there is like the image maker of the government. Or like the publicity secretary of their political party. So that's why I said that one cannot be totally cut off from political parties.
Maybe we move a bit faster and also take a look at what expectations of Nigerians are in terms of fighting corruption. The previous administration, just that last one, they talk about coming to fight corruption, and then Nigerians are not going to tell me they were convinced about the fight against corruption. Now it's a new dispensation. Do you see anti-corruption war taking a new twist, or it's just going to rest?
Well, it was part of his inaugural speech, and then again, if you look at one of the key ingredients of good governance, less of corruption, is part of the components. But ordinarily, himself he dragged before courts severally, for corruption of this, corruption of that, but he was never convicted at any point in time. I know one thing with our legal system, it's the cases on many occasions are never determined on merit. The lawyers have their technicalities, and then like this when it must be proved 100%, beyond reasonable doubt. And if there is 0.0001% out of doubt, it must be resolved in the. So those are the technicalities. But of course, at his age, with the kind of situation on ground when it's coming, if he really wants to leave the country better than he met it as a president, I think the anti-corruption crusade should come up strong. Well, we started seeing rule of law in play. And that's, cardinal points for governance. From the judgment we got early this week in Osun, and then we described before now, such type of government, such judgment will never come in Nigeria. So, that's equity. That's equity, because somebody in the caliber of the alleged person who was eventually convicted, is not by any means a main personality when you talk of Osun State. So they call the shots on that place. But if the court could hand down such a judgment on him, then of course we are beginning to see equality before the law. We need to see equality before the law. And of course, don't forget this personality is an ally of the former governor, and the former governor is a boy of the president. So if it were possible for them to have done some manipulation, they would have. But of course, again, thanks to social media, now information flow faster, and then people, that's another cardinal of good governance. Of course, the expectation of Nigeria, just like I said, is so high on him. It's so high on him. Or no, the cardinal stand of good governance.
No, many have also said that the optimism should be moderated, so that disappointment will not also be the order of the day.
Well, we pray so. Even I read something on the social media, very funny though sad. Somebody was just making an analogy. He said, if everybody in Nigeria today is taken to the United States, and everybody in the United States is evacuated to Nigeria, so within a week, Nigeria will become United States will become Nigeria. I looked at it, I initially smiled. But when I is he lying? Is he lying? He's not lying, because whatever leaders we have is a product of our society. We won't elect a president from Ghana or from South Africa. So the leadership will emerge among the group is leading. That's why the common saying goes that every group of people deserve the kind of leadership they have. But of course, the administration is too young to be evaluated. But let's keep the hope. Let's keep hope alive. Let's keep hope alive, because he knew it was a tough battle for him to get there. I knew how much Nigerians stood with him. No, ordinarily, under every circumstances, he was not supposed to be the president. I just saw the hand of God. Us, if he could lose Lagos, that is his traditional base where he has been governor for 2 terms. If he could lose Osun, where it has been several rumor that is his ancestral home, then of course, how then can he win in Sokoto and then in Ondo and whatever? So it's too, let's wait and see and keep our fingers crossed.
Well, there's an assertion from the a former minister now, Festus Keyamo, saying it is illegal to appoint minister of state. The question is, he himself was a minister of state under Buhari. Is that a patronizing statement, or is he just waking up to the legal dictates of that kind of a development? Now coming to say it's legal to appoint minister of state, is he rooting for a substantive ministerial position?
You see, Keyamo is another funny personality. You see, we have 28 ministries according to the constitution. Of course, there is this provision of federal character. That's one minister must come from each of the states. So at the end of the day, if one minister must come from each of the states, we will only be having 28
states. The 28 states will not be represented. Others will not be having a representative, as it were.
So the president of Nigeria, according to the constitutional analysis, is an executive president. So it shouldn't be dried of initiative. Of course, this was initiated to balance up the federal character provision in the constitution. But of course, for somebody who has benefited from such a system to now come up and say it is unconstitutional, well, somebody like me will not take that serious. I won't take such a person serious, because this somebody we know who has different colors. Tomorrow we will say another thing. Next tomorrow is going to come up with another provision. But it was not stated in the constitution that the president must not appoint a minister of state. If it is clearly stated like that, then it is illegal. But the constitution stipulates that, okay, the ministers must be appointed to reflect the different orientation, the different sections, the different categories within the state, especially following the principle of federal character. Okay, if that is the case, then the president can only appoint 28 ministers. What happened to these many 8 states, including the federal capital territory? That is. So that, I think that is the logic behind the appointment of
Minister of State.
Minister of States. You know, some call them junior ministers. And of course, there are some situations where you discover that, I don't want to name names here, that it was some of these ministers of state that were doing the job. That the Minister for Education, for instance, came out openly, and at the beginning he said he didn't know anything about education. Can you imagine that? So when he said that from the beginning, and he was there for 8 years, why will education not be in comatose the way it is now? It was, nobody said it for him. He said he did not know. He said it in the open. So most of the things that came out of the ministry, you know, within the first 2 or 3 years or 3 months, were coming from the Minister of State. So he was actually the one in charge. Until the very when he now grabbed his feet, he has learned the rope. Then he began to call the shot. And how could you make an alleged minister of education in a country populated by more than, as at my last record, by more than 15,000 professors. Now that is a directory. All Nigerian professors published by NUC on an hour basis. But as at the last publication, there are close to 20,000 professors in Nigeria. Then analogy.
Is it out of place to make an analogy, a Minister of Education? Isn't that you're talking about religious coloration there? Or what do you mean by that?
Not religion. Take religion out of it.
Okay.
Analogy who does not really know how the system
You mean it's not in the education sector?
Not
That's
in
what you're
the
trying to.
yeah.
Okay then, so that we don't put a religious coloration to the conversation.
No.
That's what I'm saying. Well, court okay is a no work no pay against ASU, and many are of the view that this would forestall such industrial action in the future. That lecturers will now, well, that's your constituency now. We now want to think twice that for the months they go on strike, they will be forfeiting their salaries. But will that really help the education sector, or is it brewing another problem in the offing?
I think that is misplaced priority, and whoever has added that clause, is ignorant of the educational system. That was part of what we just said, that somebody does not know about education. As a lecturer in the university, your job, is 3 parts. One, teaching is just one arm of the job. And that is the only one you don't do when you're on strike. Research and community development. These are the triple stands on which the job of a lecturer hangs. So of course, because we don't teach, does not mean we don't work. So we still engage in research, we still engage in community development. And of course, those area of syllabus that we missed during the strike, we will still cover them. We will cover them and we jeopardize our holidays and whatever. And the job of lecturer, before you go to the class, particularly in this age of internet, when you go to class and deliver a qualitative 2 hours lecture, you must have been in your study for 3-4 hours. So that is the ignorance that we are talking about. If somebody is familiar with that kind of system, that okay, this is the way it operates, this is the way it happens, you won't say no work, no pay. Because there is no point that there is no work. There is no point that there is no work. Work is always there. You research, you publish, you don't publish for yourself. Well, at a point maybe for your career growth. Because somebody at my level, if I'm not updated, I'll be outdated. If I go to sleep now because I'm a professor, by the grace of God, I've gotten to the zenith of my career, and then I can go to the class and talk rubbish. No, it's not done. Because it's dynamic. Things changes. So I have to be up and doing. When you are sleeping, I'm on my desk. Trying to find out the latest and the easiest ways of doing things. In these days of Android phone, there are some students that are so intelligent that when they throw questions to you in the class, if you are not careful, you will be off balance. Some of the younger lecturers might even take annoyance. Don't talk in my class again. Don't do this in my class again. It's of course, nobody is a reservoir of knowledge. We all develop ourselves on regular basis. The last 10 minutes of my lecture, for instance, now, I always devote for interactive section with my students. And there are some they come up with ideas I've never seen before. Sometimes I just say, openly, I tell them, okay, this is something I'm hearing for the first time. It's going to be a take-home assignment for the 2 parties. You go home, you go. The next class is going to be starting from there. So I can number when I say no work, no pay. So if he actually puts somebody who knows how the education system works, particularly the defense system operates, I'm sure he will know that that is a misadvised policy.
Well, let's quickly go to Kano, where there are insinuations that former Emir Lamido Sanusi will most likely be reinstated with the way the new governor extended personal invitation to him to attend his inauguration. That's coming at a time when people are thinking that perhaps the current occupier of that position, Ado Bayero, will be taking up the stage while the former occupier will be returned to that stage. Would that not make such to the Emirates a political position? As such, every government that comes in wants it to the right or to the left. There must be a change in the Emirates, isn't that? The Emirate leadership.
I don't really see. I don't really see it as such. I don't really see it as such because there are some restrictions placed around Sanusi in Lagos, at least regarding movement and the area where he can cover. He's a personal, it's an open secret that he's a personal ally of the president. So most of the connections he had in Kano and then the Northwest, which eventually gave him the votes that made him the president, came from that access. So I think out of respect, and I think it's just normal to allow Sanusi attends the inauguration and probably break any of the barriers that have been placed around him. Because the Kano Emirate is one of the oldest emirates in the country. And of course, if you look there, you need to their history too. This issue of banishment and then whatever has been a recurring thing. Of course, I don't see the governor doing that because the governor too is going. If he has not gone, I think they had the regular election.
Very well.
It's not hard. If the election is regular, another governor will have been sworn.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. The new governor.
Nana invited.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So there is no way we'll just tell the sitting emir to leave, except they begin to whip some allegations and then look for offenses or whatever. But of course, if he's a sensible person, and this is his first term, and who also would be looking forward to a second term, he would not dare. He wouldn't dare. So,
now, before we close up on this conversation, what should also be the disposition of Nigerians if indeed good governance should have a place in this dispensation and beyond?
The disposition of Nigerians, we are looking up. Like I said, the expectation is high.
Very well.
Because of the previous disappointments, political apathy is very high. Less than 10% of registered voters come out to vote. Even the educated ones did not vote because they do not believe in it. But of course, I'm still a very passionate person about this country. How old are we? Just 60-something years old. America and the United States more than 200 or 300 years to get it straight. But of course, they developed from the scratch. But we already have structures that we can look up to. It shouldn't take us that long. And then there are certain issues which, if the present administration puts in place, then of course it will restore the confidence of Nigeria. The confidence of Nigeria. So for instance, the issue of consensus. As a consensus among different and conflicting interests, a good leader should be able, to reconcile interests and let the majority interest dominate. There's a conflict now, maybe ethnic conflicts, religious conflicts, business conflicts, and of course those were the things he inherited. Talk about the clash between herdsmen and farmers, the Fulanization agenda according to Obasanjo, if there's anything like that. That. Two, equity. It should not just treat us equally, but we should be seen to be treated equally. Let there be equity. Inclusiveness, a comment of inclusiveness. The vulnerables, the women, the physically challenged, let all of them have a voice. All of you have a voice. In democracy, they say everybody, majority have their say. Then minority have their say, majority have their way. But to whichever way, let them have that sense of belonging. At least, okay, it's not that we never voiced out, we voiced out, and then for better reasons, our idea were dropped. Let there be rule of law. Everybody should be equal before the law. The law is a blanket. But in the previous admission, we've seen people who are living above the law. Who lived above the law. Let there be, let the judiciary be independent. You see, Malami or the Attorney General for the Federation, the former Attorney General or the Attorney, before you knew it, it had become something else. In fact, he was not even as worse as the one before him. You see, Aduaka. You see, the whole institution of judiciary was in a mess. And of course, we said as the hope of the masses, let there be rule of law, independence, then impartiality on the part of the law enforcement agencies. Impartiality on the law. Then the agitation for this state of Odua State, Biafra. You discover you've never heard about the agitation from the Southwest again now. Because Tinubu is at the center. So people are not thinking about the state of Odua. But of course, if there were balanced interest, if everybody feel that sense of belonging, all those agitations would not be there. All those agitations would not be there. Let there be fair treatment to everybody, particularly the youths, the vulnerables, the women. I'm not saying the men too. We deserve attention.
Very well.
We deserve attention. So, if it looks into all of these areas, then of course I'll prioritize what we have. Back to the first question we have started, the subsidy. If it channels whatever proceed that is made from removing subsidy to visible economic activities that we can see, to power, for instance, where we now enjoy power for like 10 or 12 hours a day, to road, to education, to health. I bet you, my brother, nobody will complain. We will buy fuel at 500 naira per liter and we'll see smile. Now I understand it's engaging the labor, it's engaging the NGOs and whatever on the way out to cushion the. But of course, my question is this: what percentage of Nigerians are salary earners? If I thought the wages are increased, you understand what I'm saying? If I thought the wages are increased, what percentage of Nigerians? Because that one would basically affect every sector. I'll talk about removal of fuel subsidy. The subsidy on diesel has been removed for over a year now, or two. On kerosene, completely removed. But what they saved from those removals, where were they invested? So that is the fear with this subsidy on petroleum. I think it should not be the same.
Okay. It should not be the same. People must see the difference. I thank you so much for your time on State of the State, Professor Lumialo. I thank you so much for those profound assertions. Everyone, this is where we say a very big thank you to you for being part of the Outlook Today. It returns next week, God willing. I am Sunday Kolaole. Please enjoy the rest of today.